everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Drive-In. This is episode 30, and you have to go back quite a while to see our guest host. I was just talking to him about this. It's been 23 episodes since we've had Aaron, our guest host from Justice League, episode number 7. So, Aaron, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
This week we're looking at Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, starring Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard, among other people. Aaron, just kind of before we get started with it, what are your thoughts on the previous Jurassic Park movies, including Jurassic World?
So it's definitely Jurassic Park was a big favorite of mine growing up. That was kind of my family's kind of go-to movie was the original Jurassic Park, starting when I was like 5 or 6 years old watching that. It's been a while since I've seen the original trilogy. I actually, prior to seeing Fallen Kingdom, rewatched Jurassic World recently just to give myself a refresher on it. So I don't know that the newer ones are as strong as the original. Obviously the original one's like the quintessential like monster movie per se, but definitely a favorite of mine going back.
What are your thoughts on the third one, Jurassic Park 3?
As a standalone movie, I don't hate it.
Okay.
As an entry in the series, it's definitely not one of the best. It's a little cheesy at times, but it's enjoyable. I mean, it's a fun movie. It definitely isn't as good as the original movie, though. I
always love the fact that, like, I remember when I was a kid, the first couple movies, I was like, where are the pterodactyls? Where are the pterodactyls? And you saw them, like, somewhat crappily CGI'd when they were on the plane at the very end of the first movie. Right. And you're like, oh, look, they're pterodactyls. Or wait, are they seagulls? You couldn't really tell.
Right.
And then they finally included them in the third one, and I was like, it was kind of, like you said, it's kind of cheesy. Yeah. It just didn't feel right. And then they threw in this whole other dinosaur, and it wasn't, what was it, the Allosaurus or something like that? And the T-Rex.
The Spinosaurus.
Spinosaurus, yeah. I was like, come on, just give us the T-Rex. That's all we really need. Right. So I'm with you there. I don't mind the third one as a part of the trilogy. Like it's nice to get back. What's his name?
Dr. Grant.
Yes, It's wonderful to get him back into it. But it just felt like they needed something to do, and so they pulled him back because they're like, oh, he was in the first one, and I don't know. I really do appreciate what they did with this one, with Fallen Kingdom in kind of comparison to Lost World. We'll talk about that as we kind of get going. But Lost World, I think, is kind of one of those hidden gems. It's not very strong when you just look at it. You're like, Lost World, it's okay. It's not as good as the first. Yeah. But in my opinion, I think Lost World is probably one that it's a little underrated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But we'll talk about, because we're seeing a little bit of some similarities between Lost World and Fallen Kingdom, so we will get to those here later. Mm-hmm. Something that we're going to add this week, just because it's going to be very important to next week's episode, is we are going to kind of just do a what are you drinking during this episode. So Aaron, what are you drinking?
I am doing a Leinenkugel's grapefruit shandy, kind of getting into the summer mood here as we're getting into warmer temperatures.
Wonderful. I'm following you along the summer route. I'm drinking a Sam Adams Porch Rocker, trying it for the first time. It's actually pretty good. It's kind of sweet. It says tart and refreshing on the bottle, and it is quite tart and refreshing. So, and you guys will have to wait to the end of this week's episode to find out why that's important to next week's episode. So, as always, Andre, here's your shout out, and let's go right into the trailer rundown. So, the trailers for what I had, of course, me and Aaron didn't see this together, so we may have a little bit of differences in movies, but for the most part, they'll probably be very similar. We had The Meg, Mission Impossible Fallout, Robin Hood, Ant-Man and the Wasp, one with new footage, by the way, Creed 2, The Grinch, and Skyscraper. Did you have anything different?
Actually, the exact lineup I had as well.
So, awesome. Yeah. Great. So, of those, anything that you're interested in seeing or anything that intrigued you for good or bad?
Definitely Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, I'm a huge comic book person. I'm wearing an X-Men t-shirt right now. So, definitely interested in seeing that one. I think it's kind of cool to bring the female superhero to the front. This is the first time that a female superhero has even been named in one of the movies. Yeah. In the titles. So, definitely interested to see that. I am a very big fan of Evangeline Lilly. I think she, from her time on Lost, and did really well with that, and kind of has parlayed that into a movie career.
Yeah.
Definitely interested to see that one. Robin Hood looked interesting. It's a little bit of a let's take Kingsman and move it back into medieval times.
Exactly, because
the same actor. And
and that was one that I was looking at, and I was like, so the entire trailer basically gave away the movie, because the whole trailer you have this random guy who seems to be like the bad guy of the movie, who's like coming down on all the people, and they're saying all these things, and they're like saying, well, I'm Robin Hood. And you're like, oh, okay, well, the guy who's the bad guy is also the good guy, so now there's a different... I don't know. It's like, you couldn't have... I mean, of course, you can't really do an entire movie marketing campaign when you don't know who the main character is.
Right.
But still, I guess it was just the marketing, the putting together of that specific trailer that was weird to me. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a little strange. That feels like a twist that you would save for the actual movie itself. But.
And I don't know, how many Robin Hood movies do we need?
Right.
Like, it seems like I go back through, like, the past couple of years, and there's, like, probably 6 or 7 Robin Hood movies.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I just don't. So going back to Ant-Man, did you get the one with the footage with him half size?
Yes.
Oh my god.
He looked like a toddler.
Yes. So he goes to give Evangeline Lilly's character a kiss, at least it looks like it, and then he presses the button and it doesn't go all the way. He runs out of the juice or whatever. And so he's half size. He's like a 6-year-old. And the best part of the trailer is the very end, and they get him and they're like, "Okay, so how was school today?" And he's like, "Ha ha." And Michael Douglas goes, do you want a juice box and some cheese sticks?
Some cheese stick, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, that's not funny. But
is that a thing?
Do you really have those?" See, that's why I like Ant-Man and that element of the franchise, because you can't put Paul Rudd in a movie and expect him to play, at least now in his career. Early on, you could get away with it, but now you just can't. Same thing with Chris Pratt, which we'll talk about. I mean, he's an action movie star in this one, but there's still plenty of comedy, and the same thing with Rudd. This was the first time I saw a full Grinch trailer. I think the one I'd seen before that was just a teaser. Mm-hmm. It looks okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's how many times are you going to be able to redo that story? I guess it's a little bit more of the before kind of a situation, but
the fact that they got Benedict Cumberbatch to me will be at least intriguing to watch.
Yeah.
But again, how many times do we need the Grinch? We have the animated, we have the Jim Carrey one. I feel like didn't we have another one? No,
I think it's just those two, but I mean, those are really the classic portrayals of that character, so
yeah. It's just, it feels like, well, I mean, does it need a reboot?
Right.
I don't know. So, and then the Meg and Mission Impossible Fallout, those have been on before. I have no interest in, I never have really put anything into Mission Impossible.
No, I've seen the first 3, I think, forever ago with my family, but I'm tired of seeing Tom Cruise run and jump out of windows. It's same thing every time. So.
At some point, he's going to have to just let it go. We'll see. And then the Meg looks cool. I don't know. That'll be toward the end of the summer. I don't know what it is. You take all the stereotypical guy movies, and I guess I never watched them. But Creed, the first one I've heard nothing but wonderful things about. The second one looks interesting, but I never got into Rocky either.
Same.
So I don't know. Skyscraper. The one thing. What are your opinions on this? Because the first time we talked about Skyscraper here on the podcast, we talked about the fact that they had The Rock portraying a handicapped actor or a handicapped person. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, of getting somebody way more than capable as The Rock playing somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a missed opportunity. I know you want that headlining action star, but I think in an area where there's definitely people who would be capable of doing that, who are actually handicapped, who have had an amputation before. I mean, I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. I get the reasoning behind a big name associated with it, but I guess maybe for the action stunts, it was better to have someone who was fully capable. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It looked intriguing.
It looks a little bit too much like Die Hard to me.
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting to see Neve Campbell in the trailer. She kind of fell off the face of the earth for a while after. I think last thing I remember her doing was Scream 4.
I was just about to say Scream too. Yeah, Scream as well. So yeah, it was kind of, I mean, I don't know. It's a summer movie.
Yeah.
It's The Rock, so he's going to bring in a lot of people who are just going to see it because it's him. But he's already been in a summer movie, I guess, or at least late spring with Rampage.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be okay. Kind of seems like one of those disaster movies. Mm-hmm. We'll get Jack on. He's the resident disaster guest host. So, yeah, we'll look at that one, I'm sure. But I don't know. It's probably going to be pretty predictable. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into our spoiler-free summary for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. When the island's dormant volcano begins roaring to life, Owen and Claire mount a campaign to rescue the remaining dinosaurs from this extinction-level event. However, when they return to Isla Nublar, things are not all as they seem. The only other element... Well, that's a spoiler. I won't say it. I'm trying to think of anything else. Is there anything else that you think we need to throw in?
No, I think that's the main thing. That's definitely at the center of the story is Owen and Claire trying to rescue the dinosaurs that they left on the island. So,
and then there's a twist.
Definitely a twist.
All right. So as always, guys, this is your opportunity to pause and go see the movie if you haven't yet seen it. Because after we get back from this little pause, we're going to be getting into some spoilers. So go ahead and do that now. And we are back. So those of you who are sticking around, you either have seen the movie, you want to kind of gauge your opinions to ours, or you just want to hear Aaron and Aaron talk, which is not a bad thing. You are going to be in for something special here. If the discussion of not Jurassic World, that's what we're doing today, Justice League is anything to compare it to, it'll be a good one. All right, so we're spoilers abounding. What did you think? Kind of just jumping into it.
I definitely thought it was a good entry. It's definitely different than the previous entries in the series have been so far. The some of the twists and kind of where the story ends up going is definitely kind of new ground, I think, for Jurassic Park in general.
Yeah, it
and
seems
I'm
very,
interested
very
to
different.
see. Yeah, interested to see where it goes from here. Definitely by the end of the movie, you're kind of where's this going? How are we going to deal with the aftermath of the events of this film?
Exactly. This almost feels like if it would have been the final installation, the questions and the discussion that can come out of how they ended it seemed like it would have been a way to just like, okay, we don't have to give you the answers. We can just say, here's the world that you're going to be living in now.
Right.
But of course, I'm glad that that's not how they ended the trilogy, and we are going to get a third movie that is going to give us some of those answers. But yeah, it was very different. I remember seeing the first trailer of this and thinking, I don't even know if I want to see it. Because the first trailer that I saw basically gives you the entire first half of the movie, which is all on Isla Nublar, and that's it. Like, all the dinosaurs are going to be extinct, and they have to get off, and basically, I thought that was the end. Like, oh, okay, they just have to get off the island again.
Right. It definitely sets it up to be that way. Like, that's going to be the movie, is them trying to rescue the dinosaurs and kind of the trials and tribulations of getting that task done. But that midway point, you're already off the island, and what's going to happen from here?
Exactly. So there's your tie into what I was saying earlier, where we start to see a lot of connections to the Lost World. Lost World is basically a two-parter as well. You have on the island, off the island, and the same thing happens here. And I saw a lot of connections specifically to that. We'll talk about it as we go along, but I thought it was interesting. My concern is movies today that are rebooting or continuing franchises from our childhood are getting lazy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Star Wars is doing the same thing. I'm loving the new trilogy so far. Yes, it has its faults, but every movie does. But Star Wars, it mirrors episodes 6 or 4, 5, and so maybe, hopefully not, but 6. Right. The same thing. I thought Jurassic World did a lot of what Jurassic Park did, but in its own way. And we're seeing the same thing here. So it's almost like if the trend continues, we're going to see pterodactyls, which we have a little bit of at the very end with the teaser. And it's just like, don't do the same thing that the third movie did, because I can only handle so much, like so many people in parachutes or parasailing, and oh man. But I don't know. So let's jump to it. So the movie starts with a cold opening. It takes place 3 years after the end of Jurassic World. And we see, I like the transition underwater. That was kind of cool. But we see these guys in this underwater submarine, and they're looking for something. They get into the big water exhibit of Jurassic World. They open up the floodgates, and they get in there, and they're looking for something. They find the Indominus Rex, that is rotted. It's nothing but bones now. And they take a rib from it, send it up to the top, and they're like, oh, okay, so they're looking for DNA. These guys it reminded me a lot of Newman. I can't remember his movie name.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have the guys who are in the rain trying to do something they're not supposed to, stealing something essentially. Yeah. And then I almost thought I even heard the sound from the dinosaur that I feel like I'm just bouncing all over. What's the spitting?
Oh,
the one from the first movie. So if you guys have seen the first
one with
movie,
the frill with the collar,
that sound where it's like doing the high pitched like do like that. I swear to God, I heard that, and I'm like, come on, what is it back? I thought it was back, and it ends up being the T-Rex, which I wasn't disappointed with. But
definitely kind of cool to see the mirror of the guy in the yellow coat running away from the dino. Definitely kind of cool. They did that a lot, I think, in this movie. They kind of mirrored some of the imagery and stuff from various points.
And that one was subtle. That one I didn't mind. But it was an interesting opening. You got guys in the helicopter, guys in the submarine, and the tech guy who's opening everything and doing all of the kind of the hacking. They have a pretty cool underwater shot of after it sends up the rib, that you see that they're not alone. You see like the shadow kind of outline of the huge shark, the Mosasaurus. I think that's how you say it. That we saw in the first Jurassic World, and then the communication signal from them goes dark. They're like, oh well, okay, I got to shut it. I can't leave this open. So they goes to shut it, and then you hear the guys in the helicopter saying, "What's that?" And they see movement. I liked the lighting, the usage of lighting in this, because you see the lightning and you see the T-Rex in the background. And he's looking like, "What's going on?" And then you see it again. I thought that was kind of cool. They do that a couple times.
Yeah, I did notice that a couple times. They use that kind of trick.
And the helicopter says, "Screw this." They're out. They start leaving. They give him the ladder, and the guy grabs onto the ladder, and then the T-Rex grabs onto the leftover ladder at the bottom, which I'm like, I just felt like that was one of those kind of physics things where I'm like, if a T-Rex is pulling on the ladder attached, wouldn't the helicopter go down? I don't know. They were going to cut it, and they didn't, and they're like, oh my God, okay, yeah, they're excited because they get away, and then the Mosasaurus eats the guy, which that was pretty cool.
Yep. That was pulls the entire helicopter in with him. Yeah.
I mean, that was a fun little ending. And then the gate is open, because they didn't completely, the guy didn't shut it down. He was running away from the T-Rex. So that's your cold opening. You have the Mosasaurus swimming out into the ocean, and then they do your title screen. Do you think that was a strong setup?
I think it's definitely an interesting approach. It kind of was a good way, I think, to show kind of the passage of time, how much time has passed since then, because you see the skeleton of the Indominus Rex down at the bottom, implying that a fairly significant amount of time has passed.
Yes.
Since it is decayed. I think it's a little odd to think about the fact that the Mosasaurus is still alive, despite the fact that no one has been in that park for 3 years. Like, what's it been eating?
Exactly. That's my question.
Weird.
Yeah.
Obviously, like the T-Rex and some of the other dinosaurs that are kind of roaming about, there's vegetation and that kind of stuff, but the Mosasaurus was in that lagoon.
And they had to feed it. Yeah, I was going to say, they fed it, was it cows? I can't remember, or something like a great white shark. That's what it was. It fed it, large animals, and it's been years. Yeah. So, that is a good question.
But definitely, I mean, it was a good, I don't want to say fun, because it's definitely that would be a little dark, but definitely an interesting way to start the movie off.
Well, I did enjoy the fact that it was done. If you look at the visual aspect of the movie, it starts and ends in the climactic elements of the beginning and the ending in darkness. Mm-hmm. The beginning of the movie is completely dark. It's raining. the end of the movie, it's at night. It's, I think actually at one point it starts to rain again, or I don't know if it's just at night. But you do have that. And so visually it was kind of cool to see that to start out. It's a dinosaur movie, monster movie. And if you add the element of darkness and bad weather, you're just adding mood to it. So I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And then we jump to Jeff Goldblum. Ah, yes. I loved him in this movie. He was in it for maybe 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a huge red herring. He was part of so many interviews about the movie, and he was all over the place, and they came out with his pop figure as like the sexy Jeff Goldblum, Dr. Malcolm, and he was barely in the movie. Like that, I don't know, that was kind of a letdown.
Yeah, but his part was definitely, I mean, it was important. It was great to have him kind of come back and give that chaos theory kind of conversation again. So I appreciated the cameo of it. Definitely think he could have been in it more, been utilized a little bit more,
and maybe he will be in the next one. I doubt it. I think that, he's not interested in that, but I mean, he did just do Thor Ragnarok, so he's not completely out of the question for a little bit more than a cameo, at least in movies nowadays. But I loved his monologue here. I loved his discussion of it, like you said. And I loved it at the end. We'll talk about his second little monologue. But I think it's a strong way of setting up the conflict, at least.
Absolutely.
The moral dilemma that a lot of the characters face, and actually kind of the entire government, as well as the mercenary group and all that. So I think that was at least, that's what his purpose was. Mm-hmm. Set up the conflict and let us look at, where would we stand on this? Basically saying that the dinosaurs need to die out. The nature is setting things right after humanity and John Hammond went and reversed it. They screwed things up, and Mother Nature is stepping back in and saying it's going to fix it. So he's trying to tell the Senate, no, do not save these dinosaurs. They need to die. That's what this volcano is doing. What are your thoughts on that? So, like, your moral stance on this of should the dinosaurs be protected, or they died out once, they need to die out altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a little bit of a gray area. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, they are living creatures, but it is definitely the idea of kind of restoring the natural order of things. I mean, there was an extinction level event already, but it definitely has its implications in terms of, like, real life today. We're bringing back endangered species from the point of extinction and kind of reversing that. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it, which is kind of interesting as you're watching the movie, because you kind of teeter back and forth between where you would land in that conflict.
I kind of feel like, and this might be reading too much into it, but I feel like it's a subtle commentary on the abortion debate. In some ways, it's like, that's it. Well, once you have this life there, it's life. Doesn't matter how it came to be in any way, shape, or form. It needs to be life.
Right.
Or you come into the concept of, a lot of where it's endangering the mother, or it was, an incident of rape, or all these other circumstances that aren't as black and white as life and death. And it seems to be like you have a little bit of this, at least with, Goldblum's stance of, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't have happened in the first place, and so it can be eradicated. And then, as we find out shortly, we have Claire and this dinosaur protection group that, even though she was the reason for all of this, because she approved it all, she's still trying to protect it because she sees. So I don't know. I might be reaching too far into it and trying to be like, oh, we need something to talk about, but I don't know. It just kind of felt like it wasn't like beating over the head like, oh, this is an allegory for abortion. Like, but it just seemed like it could have been
it's definitely
in
got
that realm.
Some pieces of that. I would agree.
So as I said, Claire and the Dinosaur Protection Group, which I thought was the least creative name. Like, I don't know. I was just like, yeah, that's really clever. I noticed this twice. And so the first time we see her in any way, shape, or form, we're looking at her feet.
Yeah.
Do you remember the big to-do?
Oh, yeah. The huge debate of her running in those high heels. Yeah.
And she is still wearing some heels the first time we see her, but she's business in this time, so it would make sense. Later on, do you notice the first time we see her on the island what she's wearing?
She's got boots on.
She's got boots now.
Of course.
They heard the outrage of that. But yeah, it's just like, of course, the first thing you're going to focus on when you see her is her shoes. And guess what? She's still wearing heels, but it's okay because it's business setting.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a little bit of definitely a tongue-in-cheek reference to the criticism of the first film in the infamous high heels.
Oh, it had to be. Like, if it wasn't, it was just too ironic. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, she comes in and we find out very quickly that she is in charge of this protection group. She doesn't just work there, but she's kind of the boss of it. And she is trying to convince others, as well as all the people she's working for, to kind of side with the dinosaurs in this debate. But it doesn't seem to matter because as soon as they are talking about all this, they see a breaking news story that the Senate decided against intervening. They are not going to intervene. They're going to let the dinosaurs die because it's not on American soil. It just feels like it goes beyond humanitarian. But that's when she gets a phone call from Ben Lockwood, who is John Hammond's former partner. Now, I might be completely ignorant in this, but was he in the first Jurassic World?
I don't think so. After I saw it, I tried to look into it to see if he was, because when he first came on the screen, there was that moment of, he looks really familiar, but is it because I've seen him in other movies, or is it because he was in the trilogy? And it doesn't reference him anywhere in any of the other movies.
Yeah, I felt like it was out of nowhere. It just was like, okay, like I understand we have new storyline to tell, but I don't remember even hearing about him having a partner.
Right.
And so it was kind of a plot point that if it was in the first movie or anywhere in the others, it wasn't so obvious that they could just drop this guy.
Right.
And they I think they did enough to try to at least, I mean, I didn't feel confused with who he was and how he fit into the storyline, but it just felt like a little bit of a name drop. Like, oh yeah, I was his partner. Okay. Right. He had a partner? I don't remember him having a partner.
A little bit of a plot convenience that was just kind of thrown in there a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that the fact that they threw him in there out of nowhere, I'm looking up some things right now, and it's one of those things that a lot of people are even saying that it's kind of retroactively adding this character to try to make up for something that they missed. Right. So I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. Definitely as we go through the movie, though, we do see how this takes place and how this is adding more to the plot. So she does get this phone call then from Ben Lockwood to visit her estate. Essentially, she gets there and I don't know. It felt weird. We first meet Eli Mills and I can't remember the name of the actor, but he's played a few different bad guys. So it's kind of
Rafe Spall.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what else he has been in. Here, let's look up here. You've seen him in a few things. He has been in Prometheus. He was the bad guy in that. He's one of those guys that is definitely, he was in Life of Pi. He was in The Big Short. He was a character in the BFG. So he's been in quite a lot of different things. But every time you see him, he looks like a villainous British man. So it's kind of a giveaway that he's going to be a bad guy. I don't know. He also was, I'm trying to think if he was in, either he looks like the guy. I just recently watched The Ritual on Netflix, which, side note, very good. He was in that. That's where I remember seeing him from recently. Ritual, Netflix original, came out last year. Very, very good scary movie. Creepy, backwoods, supernatural, all that kind of stuff going together. And he was the main guy in that. So he wasn't a bad guy in that one, though, but he did do something bad. He was not a bad guy. He's just, he's human. But I digress. We meet at Eli Mills, and then we quickly see this mysterious small shadow creature. It ends up being a little girl who's like watching everybody and then runs away. And then we meet Ben Lockwood, and it's James called Cromwell. Very wonderful actor, but again, kind of a weird concept of bringing him in.
Especially the initial phone call that Claire gets in the office. It's Ben Lockwood's estate, and she has a sudden moment of realization, like we're supposed to know who he is, but he's never been explained before. It was a little...
It's like, of course I'll answer it. And you're like,
positioning
why?
was a little bit strange. Like, who the hell is Ben Lockwood?
And I mean, they jump into it. He talks about it. He's carrying around the amber, and it's a big fucking mosquito in there. Did you see that? It was like a giant mosquito. The one in Hammond's was actually the size of a mosquito.
Yeah.
This one was like the size of like 10 horseflies together. It was huge. But they have him, old guy with a beard, and he's just talking about dinosaurs. He loves them and all this stuff. So, I mean, he fits into the storyline, but again, we kind of talked about how it's frustrating. But the whole reason why she's been called there is she is going to get this offer that they are going back to Isla Nublar because privately, the government's not going to let them do this, but they are going to do this privately, and they're going to get out as many dinosaurs as they can. Which unfortunately is only, 11, 12 species?
Yeah, I think they said 11 species.
Which doesn't seem like a lot. Saying that this movie alone, I mean, I remember in the first 20 minutes of Jurassic World, once we are looking in Jurassic World, you see everything. So it's like, okay, well, they're going to get a few out. Yeah. But they need help getting Blue. And there's two reasons why she's been contacted. One, because of the tracking system that she can set up. Mm-hmm. All the dinosaurs have been chipped for a tracking system that is her handprint as the kind of the access way through it. They also need Blue, though, because the only person who's going to get to Blue was Blue's trainer, Chris Pratt's character, Owen. So we quickly shift to her driving up to his cabin that he's building.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird transition.
Yeah, a little strange.
But he's building this, and I don't know if you caught this, but he definitely did the stereotypical guy in the sunset, like with the sun in the back, and he does the slow turn, and he like dipped his head down. It was totally making fun of it, and it was definitely a Chris Pratt improv moment there. But he's needed, and it's just Pratt being Pratt. I mean, what did you think of, just in general, what did you think of him in this movie?
I appreciate Chris Pratt as a combination action hero / comedian. He definitely, I mean, he has the action moments of kind of beating the crap out of the bad guys and fighting people, but still has his comical moments. We have him when they're actually on the island once they finally get there. Some of his comments to Claire are really, really funny.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is he says, "Remember, if I don't come back, you made me come here." So that was, and he had to have improvised that or something, or got the writers to put it in, because that's definitely a Chris Pratt thing. So definitely good. Continues the story arc from the first movie, really, really well, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, it was nice because they didn't dwell too much on this, but when they go back, she asked, like, do you want to, let me buy you a beer? And basically she's giving him the pitch to go back to get Blue. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't care. He does not care at all. But within this, it's nice that we get some background of they dated, they broke up. There's a little bit more of that humor there where he says, I broke up with you. She's like, no, I told you either get out or, leave with me. And he's like, all right, well, I got out, but I chose to get out. I chose to leave. And so, there's a little bit of that exposition there. But then we kind of quick jump. He goes back and to his trailer where he's building this cabin, and he starts watching these videos of Blue, which I thought was kind of an awe moment. You're like, oh, little baby Blue.
Yeah.
But you see exactly how he was training. Anytime he would show any submission, or like he was being a little bit more submissive, like he was hurt or he was cowering, all the others would like attack him.
Yeah.
And they were like little kids running around and like chasing, toys. And Blue was the one who kind of barked orders at him and said like, no, you need to pay attention. And she showed compassion when he was submissive, didn't try to take over, which is really important going through the movie as to why they actually want Blue. And she is the last remaining velociraptor there on the island. So we do quick jump though after this. They are going to the plane, and all of a sudden, Owen pops up and he's like, where have you been? Like, he slept on the plane. I guess it's not important as to how he broke into the plane. Or I don't know, maybe the plane's unlocked.
Yeah, I don't
know.
Definitely a little bit of humor there.
Yeah.
Because you see her standing outside waiting and making them hold the plane until the last possible minute when he's been in there the entire time.
Yeah.
Definitely kind of a funny moment there.
So he joins the mission. And so we see they land on Isla Nublar, and we've got some additional people to the group. We have Claire and Owen, which you're familiar with if you've seen the first movie. But we do have Franklin, Zia, and we have Ted Wheatley, which we meet on the island. Franklin, I mean, I think these were good characters. I liked the portrayal of them all, but they were very fit into a mold. They just like the prototypical nerdy, smart person who's also afraid of nature, but steps up in the end, you know. Yeah. You have Zia, who is the independent, sassy, don't need no man veterinarian. And she really, just throughout the whole movie. I did appreciate this, though, of early on when they said, no, you don't need to go with, and she's like, she pulls out the tranquilizer out of Wheatley's vest and says, any more than one of these and you could kill it. You need a vet with you. Yeah. I can handle myself. Which was nice, but again, stereotypically, she's definitely she's the Ellie Sattler. She's the Laura Dern character of this series, which is, I appreciate. Yeah. I liked her character. Some of the arcs that she goes through, even standing up to the military people and really standing her ground, I think was a great arc for her. Yeah. And Franklin was he was funny. He was hysterical. Just the screams. His scream. He probably got it. He probably got that role because of the scream. Yeah. Like, if you've ever seen the trailers before movies where it's like, he's talking about, it's a T-Rex, and you see like the lava coming down and it's this monster, or like one of the dinosaurs coming down. It seems like a fake scream, but then you hear it in the movie and you're like, oh my god, that's him. That's a definitely scream. Him. It was pretty cool. Yeah. Definitely goes back, the first movie, Lexi, the granddaughter. Yes. Her screaming in that movie was kind of what made her character. Everyone remembers that moment when she's faced with one of the dinosaurs and she just screams at the top of her lungs. And it's the T-Rex. It's the first T-Rex where she's standing there in the rain. She has like the Jello, or no, she's got the Jello on the spoon. Oh yeah, and that the T-Rex is coming towards her. It's just great. Oh yeah, I mean, it's and there's another one of those nods from character to character, kind of out of the element. He was good in this. I thought that his, the Franklin character doesn't like nature. The moments that he had where he's like spraying the bug spray on him and like dousing his arms with bug spray and like, bug spray? Like talking to the big, like bulky mercenaries next to him. You want some bug spray? No? You need to leave. Okay. You want some bug spray? That was pretty cool. But they get onto the island and they meet Ted Wheatley. Wheatley. He is kind of the head ranger leading the mission. He's the mercenary guy. If you've ever seen any movie with the actor Ted Levine in it, who plays this character, this was a bad guy. He's always played a bad guy. I'm trying to think, like, I was looking through some of the things you may have seen him in. The movie Evolution. You remember the old Alien movie with David Duchovny in it? And vaguely. He plays the really corrupt, bad, I mean, it's a comedy, but corrupt and bad general. I mean, he's just, I kind of knew, you can hear in his voice too. You're like, oh, that's a bad guy. So it kind of a tell just by the casting of this guy. I mean, he's a great actor. Again, I'm trying to think of some of the other things he's been in. He was Buffalo Bill. Yep. I was looking through. I'm like, oh, how did I forget Buffalo Bill? You can't really go you can't get much more evil than that. I don't think. So the guy who plays Buffalo Bill is on the island, and no, he's not trying to molest the dinosaurs, but in a way, he kind of does. Not in the way that you all are thinking immediately, but we'll talk about that here shortly. So yeah, he's there to greet them, and they get onto this transport, and they go right down the main street, and everything it's kind of a cool like callback. Mm-hmm. You see one of the little tiny dinosaurs amongst all the toys, and it moves, and you're like, oh man. But this was one of those moments, at least for the character Zia, which was kind of, for me at least, relatable because it's how we all would react. Oh yeah. She is basically a dinosaur vet who's never met a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. And this huge Brachiosaurus. They start to hear the thumps, the pounding of something, and they look around, and she gets out, and they're like, "No, you can't do that." So you're thinking it's a T-Rex or something like dangerous. and they see it just walk by, and it's kind of another callback to the first movie. Which, again, like, the subtle ones were cool. There's one that we'll get to later on that I was like, that one, I wasn't so subtle. But yeah, it was neat. I like that. And we'll talk about this Brachiosaurus here in a little bit. Because, oh man. So yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I need to emotionally compose myself before we talk about that. They continue on, and they get to this outpost, essentially, and they get into it. Franklin gets him in, and Claire's print sets up the microchip tracking system, and they find Blue. You've got Chris Pratt, you got Wheatley, and you have Zia, who all go amongst other mercenaries to go track this. And this, if you've seen the trailer, you've seen the next 10 minutes, essentially. They track down Blue. Blue gets, you have these guys who, even though the guy who trained and knows everything about this dinosaur says, back off, don't put your guns up, don't be threatening. What do? They come up to it, they put up their guns, and they're threatening. Which I was like, they have no care for any of these guys, because one of the mercenaries gets attacked, and it looks like he's getting just eaten alive, and he is.
Yeah.
He's getting this.
Yeah, there's definitely some blood.
There's blood.
Yeah.
And at one point you see one of the claws from Blue going into his face.
Yeah.
And his reaction, shoot it. Which they are like, no, don't shoot her, we need her alive. And Blue gets shot. They're freaking out because they're like, okay, what's going on here? Chris Pratt's Owen gets tranquilized with something that's supposed to take down a velociraptor.
Right.
He goes down quick.
Yeah.
And then you see Zia, and she is doing her independent woman thing and basically saying, if you kill me, Blue dies. And he's like, no, I will kill you if Blue dies.
Yeah.
Which kind of flips it on her.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have the very quick turn of everybody, and you find out Eli's the bad guy, and they're doing these things. They're basically going to sell the dinosaurs. I don't know. It was a quick turn. Not that I personally felt that Eli was a good guy to begin with, but do you think that they gave away too much storyline too quickly? Because we're only maybe about 30 minutes into this movie.
Yeah. It definitely was a quick turn. I think based on this was the point where you really start to see how this movie's going to be paced. Just because you've got the reveal of essentially the big bad guy of the movie 30 minutes in, which usually takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, you're used to those those actors playing those kinds of characters, and you get kind of that weird feeling from them initially anyway.
Yeah.
I think it worked. I think you knew from the moment you met Wheatley that he was not there to help. It's the stereotypical military man who's there to help the cause, but he's got ulterior motives for what he's doing there. So
yeah, and I mean, it shifted quickly, and even more so because as soon as they get Blue, the volcano starts to erupt, and I was like, that's a little convenient. Mm-hmm. One thing I did not like about this movie is the writing felt very gotta fit a mold, gotta fit the model of an action movie. Of can't let things get too slow, can't let characters develop. We just have to keep things exploding and dinosaurs jumping out. Like, it just felt like you could almost tell what was going to happen next to some extent through the entire movie. There's nothing left to do. They got Blue, so what else do they have to do? Get off the island. Well, why do they have to get off the island? Because the volcano's erupting, and that's exactly what happened. So I don't know. I was not completely disappointed with the movie, but it felt lazy, like some lazy writing at times. They didn't know what to do, so they just wrote the generic way out. So we have a couple different splits. Zia is now held hostage, essentially. She is being taken, having to take care of Blue. We have Claire and Franklin, who are all of a sudden stuck, and not on purpose, I don't believe.
I think it was a little bit. Did you? I thought it was a little bit of they're going to close the doors because they need to get rid of the people who know what they're up to, kind of a situation.
Okay, I can see that.
Because I don't think they ever anticipated that Claire and Franklin and Zia and and Owen were going to get off the island with them, because that ruined their entire plan.
That's true.
So I think it was intentional. You hear the guards kind of yelling, and they close the doors right away. That's why Franklin asked if he thinks that it's for their safety, but she says, no, I don't think so. I think it's an intentional, let's trap them in here so that we can get rid of them kind of situation.
Well, and this is when Franklin notices that there is something on the screen coming toward them, and they said, where's this pipe, that pipe lead? And they said, to the outside. So there's a dinosaur that is coming down, which again, they play with the lighting, which is cool. This time, though, it's lava that is coming down, and the light from the lava and the fire shows off this dinosaur, and it's I looked up the name. It essentially looks like a small Spinosaurus. Yeah. But it's a Baryonyx. Yeah. I love dinosaurs when I was growing up. I don't remember this one. Yeah. But yeah, if you've seen the third movie, it looks like a smaller version of that Spinosaurus. And thank God there was lava. I never thought that would be something that a character would be happy about. Yeah. But it ends up saving him. And how does it not kill? It lands on the lava lands on the dinosaur's head, and he just looks a little upset and pissed off by it. But it's.
Yeah, no, I didn't quite get that either. That's one of the, I think, criticisms of the movie, is they frequently end up really either touching or really close to the lava, and they're okay. Like, multiple times they're within, like, inches of it, and the heat coming off of that alone should...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the next thing I was going to even say, Owen, he wakes up to find the lava rolling at him, and it just so conveniently wraps around him instead of just coming straight at him. And I'm like, okay, that's convenient geographical formations. It was funny. I mean, that's what it was for. And he starts he basically reminded me of Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street during the Quaaludes, where he's trying to move, but he has no feeling in his body.
See, and I went Princess Bride with Wesley.
Yep.
Every time, him just trying to move around and not having any kind of feeling. It's great.
I mean, and it was funny, and that's what it was for. But again, it was a Chris Pratt moment. Yeah. And that's what it was. It basically was setting us up for this Owen running away from the animals that are running out of the jungle, as well as Claire and Franklin, who climb up this pipe to get out of how did they not see that before?
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out a way out of this, and they're like, no, there's no way out. And then all of a sudden she looks to her left, and there's a ladder, and leading out to a pipe that's on top.
Yeah, little bit of a plot convenience there, I think, to get them out of that.
But they get out. Yeah. Barely. And again, I think it's a little ironic that at least Claire, granted, it's either you die or you let this thing die, but she has no problem with this dinosaur getting eaten alive or getting consumed by lava, but she's there to protect the dinosaurs. Yeah. Anyways, they get out. They are running, and they catch up with Owen. He's running out of the forest with all of these other dinosaurs, and they get to the fallen log. Another callback to the first episode, first movie with the kids by the log when the T-Rex jumps out with the flock. I don't remember what they're called, but there's also one of the gyrospheres there, and they go to get into it, and he can't get in because it's been rolled over because it's what is the name of that dinosaur? The not quite T-Rex. The smaller one.
Oh, I can't remember.
It's got the horns on it. This is the one that basically was being attacked or was attacking earlier in Jurassic World, not the Indominus Rex. Let's see if we can find this. But it shows up. It's kind of putting everybody in danger, and then we get the T-Rex that shows up to protect them, kind of in a way, but not so much. More of just portraying its dominance. That's what the T-Rex does. This was cool, though, and this is something that I was glad I was able to see before the movie, because then I could look out for it. You notice on this T-Rex, and it's very clear, there's scratches on its neck, scratches on its face. That's an amazing amount in continuity from the first Jurassic Park with the Velociraptors.
Yep.
There was a lot of continuity in this movie, and I appreciated it when I saw it because sometimes, I mean, no one's looking for it, but when you see it, you're like, that's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
I love that. That was cool. Because it's the same T-Rex. It's been the same T-Rex. That was the excitement in the first Jurassic World. You're like, oh my god, it's a T-Rex from the first movie. Which, again, this T-Rex lasts throughout this whole movie. Something huge is going to happen to this thing. It's been around for 30 years, and it's continuously stepped in right at the right moments. It's going to protect them somehow in the final movie, and then get blown up or something.
Yeah.
Like a la blue whale on the side of it, or on the beach. They're like, you're gonna have to do something big to it. But yeah, the T-Rex shows up, protects them, but now they're all on this running to the edge of a cliff to jump in because the lava's coming, dinosaurs are coming, and they all jump into the ocean. The sphere, though, is filling up with water, and they get the panel, the glass off, and they get up to the top of the water. And then we have one of those kind of like convenient jumps where they're on the beach and they're like, oh man, finally we got out. And like, there was no beach anywhere near them. So I don't know where that beach was.
Right.
But we see that they see all of a sudden this huge helicopter, this transport copter comes by holding a dinosaur, and it is going to the port where they are getting ready to ship out. They have all these different dinosaurs, including the T-Rex, which, how did the T-Rex get from the edge of the cliff to there so easily? That was another one of those, like, convenient, lazy writing.
Not to mention, I want to know how strong the motors in that helicopter have to be to lift that T-Rex. Like, just sheer weight-wise, that seems a little far-fetched to me, but I mean, the visual of it, of course, is the perfect trigger for them to run and go save the day. But again, I just felt like it was lazy writing at times. It's like it's definitely a very convenient. How can we get this character to this point the fastest? Oh, just jump cut it and get it to that point. So and it gets you there, but it doesn't give you answers. And so that again, those are my dings of this movie, is you're not getting answers in places where you kind of need them. It's convenience though. It's not necessarily like without this answer, you lose the entire movie, but it feels kind of like, they wrote their way into a nice little hole and they just completely ignored it and wrote their way out. So the mercenaries are loading the ship with the other dinosaurs. Claire, Owen, and Franklin are basically looking around them saying, we have to get onto the ship or we're all going to die. At the same time as we are loading all these dinosaurs, we see a little thing about Wheatley and his character that's going to come back to play a little later. He's doing the very normal, not normal, stereotypical poacher thing with the necklace. He's making a necklace out of all the dinosaurs that he gets with the teeth. So he's extracting the teeth from one of every dinosaur, and kind of just really makes him villainous. Like, you see this very helpless, I think it's a Stegosaurus, and he just yanks out a tooth. Out, and it's like, god damn. You don't like him before, but you really don't like him after that. And they're loading everybody up, and basically the only people left on the island are these three. They're running. You have the very, convenient, oh, hey, I fell over. They have to go back and get him, Franklin, because I thought it was funny because you see, Pratt is in a dead sprint, 20 yards ahead of everybody else. And then you've got Claire, and then you've got Franklin, the back end, and he's running as fast as he can, but he's way behind. I thought it was kind of pretty funny. But he falls over, and Claire's like, Owen tells Claire, get the truck. And the truck works. I don't know why it wouldn't work. But they get into the truck, and the truck launches itself, because the ship starts pulling away, launches itself off to the dock into the ship, and you're like, oh my god, they made it. Great. Yeah. And then the saddest moment in movie history. Awful.
Oh my god, seriously, I don't know if I've ever seen a moment that was more heart-wrenching than this. They look back, and you basically see this wall of smoke and lava that is coming up toward the end of this dock, and presumably the same Brachiosaurus we see earlier, but I don't know if it's proven to be that one. You see a Brachiosaurus like slowly walking to the end of the dock, and you're like, yeah, this thing's got nowhere to go. And it becomes consumed with the smoke and the fire, and you see like the shadows of it, and you're just like basically helplessly watching this Brachiosaurus be like melted alive. It's
awful.
It's rough.
Yeah.
I was looking toward some reactions, and that was like the one moment you see a lot of people on Twitter saying like the writer who did that can go to hell for making me feel these horrible thoughts.
It's like the worst.
Like, and I appreciated it because there has to be some helplessness somewhere.
Yeah.
Our characters, like we said, conveniently are getting out of everything, and everybody seems to be okay, and all these different things. You kind of need to see some bad things happen to believe that bad things can happen.
Right. It's been a lot of convenience so far with the good guys getting out. So that's definitely it's a dark path to take, but I think a necessary one to add some gravity to the film.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay. So we're going to take, this is a good moment to split because this is kind of the split in the movie going from the island to the mainland. Also, too, so we can compose ourselves after talking about the dying Brachiosaurus. So we're going to take the break. We're going to let's all go to the lobby, refill your drinks. I know I'm getting close to being done with my beer, so I need a second. And we need to compose ourselves. So let's see what is coming up soon from Eventide.
Oprah's Book of the Month Club? Please. We've got something much better in store for you.
Let's talk about books. The energy is right. I got a candle going. It feels good.
Every Monday morning, Jessica Gillen sits down and talks with you about the very best in books and literature.
Murder on the Orient Express. The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. The Cruel Prince.
It's The Bookseller. Every Monday morning, brought to you by Eventide Entertainment. If there's one thing that's true about wrestling fans, it's how much they like to talk about wrestling. Join Aaron Lopez and Ben Norsworthy for the Top Rope Wrestling Podcast.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Tune in every episode and be ringside as these two break down all of the big matches in the world of professional wrestling. Brought to you by Eventide Entertainment.
All right, and we are back. We have wiped away all of our tears from the Brachiosaurus, and we have refilled our drinks. So, Aaron, what are you drinking now?
It is I have no idea how to pronounce this. It's a strawberry lime hard cider. I can't pronounce the brand, though. Recorder leg?
All right.
I don't know.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I am switching up to Leinenkugel's Watermelon Shandy. Still staying in the summer mood. So we are back. Like I said, the movie shifts here from this point. We are on the boat still for a little bit, but at this point, we're going to shift our discussion over to the Lockwood Manor because we have kind of not necessarily failed to talk about, but it's not really been built into the discussion or the plot yet. We have to talk about Maisie, the granddaughter who we saw in the shadows earlier in the movie. Eli. The auctioneer and Ben Lockwood. A lot's going on with these characters. Maisie is the granddaughter of Lockwood. She is she's an adorable little actress.
Yeah.
Just who's got some fire to her. She scares her nanny. And then the way she describes it is hilarious. She's talking to her grandpa about like how she ventured this afternoon through the Cretaceous and Jurassic periods, and her nanny was a casualty of the expedition. And it's funny. It's good. I thought it was good writing for her. Definitely gives her a strong character arc to go off of. But there's some like mystery surrounding her past.
Yeah.
Her grandpa, the James Cromwell's character, has a photo album with him almost everywhere he travels. He's looking at it multiple times throughout the movie, but every time every time Maisie comes in, he shuts it and like sets it off to the side, presumably to give his attention to her. But at one point, she goes to like pull out a picture,
she's trying
and he
to like take a picture out of it, and he stops her.
Yeah, But he does so in a grandpa way, like, no, we're talking, like, don't be rude. But you get this feeling like, okay, there's something to this photo album, because it wouldn't be shown this many times. And there is. We'll talk about it when it gets relevant here shortly. Eli Mills, though, very, very well portrayed at this point on as this evil genius bad guy, at least, who has all these plans. I loved who they got to play the auctioneer. This was
it's Toby Jones.
Yes, Toby Jones, who was he plays the weaselly bad guy in like every movie. Yeah. He does a really good job of it. You've seen him as from the Marvel movies, from Captain America. He's one of the old Germans. And I should know the actual character's name that he plays.
I'm trying to find it. Arnim Zola.
Yeah, Zola.
Yeah.
So he plays Zola there. He's this short little Weasley guy. And he plays it well again in this movie. He's an auctioneer who has all these connections and is basically saying, where are these dinosaurs at? They're supposed to be here by now. And Mills is saying they're on their way. They are en route, currently on a ship that will be here soon. And he's like, well, call me when they get here. Or basically just like, I don't believe you.
Like, I don't have time for this kind of thing.
And so it's kind of saying like his manhood is being questioned here and his ability to deliver in this deal. Mm-hmm. So Eli's like, all right, come downstairs with me. So he goes down, and this is probably a bad thing, because had he not done this, I don't think Maisie would have seen and heard everything that she did. Maisie overhears this conversation, knowing that these dinosaurs are not being taken to the sanctuary like was promised. They're being brought here to be sold off. Mm-hmm. How does she know the code? It didn't seem like she was...
She's looking around like the corner of one of the displays when he's typing it in.
Okay. Because later on she goes down, and I was just like... I noticed that. I'm like, she knows the code, but I don't remember her being that close. I don't know. Maybe she's just...
I mean, she was just kind of around the corner, so I mean, it...
Clever. Convenient writing again.
Yeah.
But it's all right. So Maisie actually follows them down later on, and they basically... Well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Eli and the auctioneer go down to the basement labs, and we find out that they are what they're planning on doing, and they've been creating a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. They've utilized... He shows off the Indominus Rex rib and says, like, look what we've been doing. We've done with this. And they don't show it completely, but they talk about how they are creating this mix between a raptor and the Indominus Rex, the Indoraptor. But the problem is that they can't train it yet as well as they want. But that's what Blue's for, and they have Blue. Yeah. So then we jump down to Maisie coming down, and the entire lab is empty. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it was a little strange.
The lab's empty, and she's going around, she's looking at things, and she's trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And all of a sudden, she has to get out of the way. Like, she has to run away because they're coming back. But this time, it's with somebody. It's with Dr. Wu, which I think is awesome that they have made him such a big character from being in the first movie for this like little bit role in Jurassic Park. Now he's one of the main bad guys. Pretty cool.
I think it's interesting though to frame him as a bad guy. That is, because he's very much, yes, he's driving kind of the negative plot point, but really for him, I think it's a combination of kind of scientific discovery and more of I want to see what I can do as a scientist kind of thing, rather than he doesn't necessarily want to be involved in the selling aspect of it. He wants to be involved in the creation side of things, which I think is really, it's an interesting way to take his character, I think, rather than making him a full-blown kind of opportunistic villain. I think it's interesting.
That's a good point. I mean, he is portrayed, and I think the easy way of saying he's the bad guy because he's helping the bad guys do bad things, but he steps in a couple times in this movie he has a line, and he's not going to cross that. That line is, like you said, it is kind of within the confines of science. Mm-hmm. I think that he understands what's right and wrong, but he also knows that this technology can be used for good. He's playing God by using it, though. Right. And so I think that's where I think some people are going to call him a villain, whereas others might just say, he's a scientist. He has a line. He's not going to cross it, but his line of morality is different from those that might just say he shouldn't be toying at all.
Right.
But he steps in and he explains this to Eli that the reason why we need Blue isn't because of her blood. She needs to live. It is not a question of whether she lives or dies because of the blood. It's because she has to be the mother to this Indoraptor. It needs to be somebody who has dominance and who can show her, this new creature, how to act. Mm-hmm. So it's very important that Blue stays alive. Maisie, though, this little thing is getting out of the way of everything and is able to hide and duck, goes downstairs and starts backing up away from everything. And she steps over this red line as she's backing up. And you see, it's really creepy. You see this like claw. And I don't know if you noticed it, but the Indoraptor's hands were more, the movements at least, were very much more human-like than dinosaur. Yeah. It was almost like it was CGI'd with a human hand that they barely did anything to. Yeah. Which is, I mean, that's not a knock. Just to kind of show, though, like, it was like reaching out to her. Like a hand would reach out. Not an animal's hand or a dinosaur's hand, but like a human hand. Real creepy.
It's definitely, they made the Indoraptor really, I think, intelligent almost to a human extent throughout the movie, which I think was interesting. Sometimes I think it maybe goes a little too far in the human realm of things, but definitely an interesting approach to it. Definitely really creepy, though, to see the claw coming out of the kind of cage back there and reaching towards her.
And it brushes her hair with its claw. Not by design, I think. I think it's trying to grab her, but it just happens to touch her and basically give warning to her. Yeah. She turns around, starts screaming, freaking out, not trying to hide anymore. Eli comes running around. What are you doing down here? And she's saying what we would all be saying is, what the hell is that? She wants to know, what is it? He drags her upstairs, throws her in her room, locks the door, and tells the nanny not to let her out without any explanation. So we get our first real glimpse of the Indoraptor there. And then we jump back to the ship. Mm-hmm. So we talked a little bit about the Lockwood Manor. We'll come back there shortly. But we go back to the ship and Blue's dying. The only way Blue can survive is if Blue has a blood transfusion, essentially. Mm-hmm. Well, Blue is the last remaining Velociraptor, so they need something that is close to it. Mm-hmm. Well, the only thing close to it is about 3 blocks over, and it's the T-Rex. Mm-hmm. This was a really interesting... I wish I was in a bigger theater with we've got the XD big screen. I saw it on a small screen on a Friday morning. But this scene is one that I really would have enjoyed with like louder booming sounds because it was pretty cool. We have I referred to this scene as the T-Rex blood drive. It's like, you're like, oh, okay. They've got to get blood from the T-Rex. Well, the T-Rex is tranked, and at one point the scene involves jamming this like probably 2-foot needle into the side of the T-Rex. Claire, Bryce Dallas Howard, riding the T-Rex. Like, it brings me callbacks to Doctor Strange, or not Doctor Strangelove, well, kind of that, but the whole riding the nuke thing, because she's on the T-Rex. Like, if you know your superheroes, it's like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. She's riding this T-Rex, which, bucket list items, I guess. But yeah, so she's riding this T-Rex and as it wakes up, and it was pretty cool. It was another callback visually, at least, to the T-Rex's eye in the first. It starts opening, and you got Pratt right next to it, and it starts freaking out and trying to break free. Yep. I don't know. I felt like this. I'm a little upset that he didn't say what I thought he was going to say. Essentially, he jumps literally through the teeth. Like the dinosaur's, the T-Rex's mouth is open up against the side of a wall, and he like somersault barrel rolls through the mouth out. He's like breathing heavily, and it's like, woo! Did you see that? Like, did that just happen? I thought he was gonna say like, I just jumped through the T-Rex's mouth. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was believable. I guess as much as you can believe, in this sense. Yeah. But like, what did you think of that sequence? Because it was. I feel like it could be forgotten. Oh, yeah. But It was part of the trailer. I think it was visually one of the cooler moments because of the proximity to this T-Rex. The T-Rex in this movie is forgotten. Like, it shows up a lot, but it's not the focal point of really anything. So, what did you think of it?
I thought it was it was a cool scene. I mean, the comedy in the scene was great for such a high pressure situation. I mean, just the visual of, Owen telling Claire that she had to get on the T-Rex, and her just not casually getting on it, but just full on hopping like she's mounting a bull was the best visual ever. And of course, then them both freaking out, thinking he's going to wake up.
What does he say? Because I think he even says something like, "You're not riding a bull."
Yeah,
because she does. She just like lumbers onto this.
Right. So it's and then of course the T-Rex waking up and the drama of that, and then I love. They're out and they close the doors, and you just have that moment where you have the same thought that he does, where he asks, "Please tell me you got the blood," and you think for a second like she left the blood in the container and they're going to have to go in and get it. But of course, Claire thinks of everything and just holds up the bag of blood, which is great. But just that moment where they're both panting, completely out of breath, scared for just completely shitless that they forgot everything. And
I thought the same thing. I don't remember her having it when she climbed up the ladder. I remember not seeing it. It doesn't mean she didn't have it, but that thought came to mind. I was like, they don't have it. What was the point? And then she holds it. I'm like, okay, yeah, they have it. Okay,
yeah. Definitely a fun scene. Good way to involve the T-Rex and show a little bit more of the comedy aspect of things.
Exactly. It was a good blending of the comedy and action that we're getting really with the entire movie. It was a good like snapshot summary of that. So they go and they start working on Blue again. Zia is able to remove the bullet that has been in Blue this entire time. Remove the bullet. She's going to be okay. And essentially at this point, then we kind of go we go to the next morning where they have landed, and they don't know where they're at, but they realize they've landed on this dock outside of the Lockwood Manor. And so you have Franklin and Claire and Owen who are trying to get out of this place, and Franklin gets caught up. He can't get out of there in time, and he basically is seen as someone who is one of the mercenaries. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was hilarious. Like, I think it was Owen who said, "Oh, he's gonna die. Like, he's not gonna be able to handle this.
He's definitely not cut out for that."
And he shows up later on. It's kind of convenient that he's where he is when he is. But Owen and Claire, it's one of those things that it surprised me that this was not a focal point of this movie really ever. We know that they had dated. We know that there was a love interest before. And it was teased a lot, but the only other time I remember, outside of perhaps really just the setup at the end of them having any romantic relationship, is that morning before they try to get off the truck. He wakes up first. She's laying on him. Like they're kind of like laying on each other as they were sleeping. Mm-hmm. And her hand is tucked inside his shirt on his chest. And he notices it and kind of has this smirk of like, ah ha ha. And then he sniffs her hair. And not in like a creepy way, even though there's not a non-creepy way of sniffing somebody's hair.
But it's like a remembering a familiar feeling.
Yeah, it's just
kind of a thing. Yeah, it's not creepy. It's a more of a loving gesture, yes. I think, at that point.
And then he goes back to sleep, and she wakes up and realizes that her hand is there, but her reaction is very different from his. She doesn't like go back into this like, "I'll remember what we were." She pulls the hand away and is like, "We're here." Like, she's embarrassed by it. But that was really it. They didn't really drive home the fact that this was a romantic relationship, which I think I'm happy with. I hate romance being forcefully injected into these action movies. So like I appreciated it. It was okay.
It was enough of it to acknowledge the romance was there. Yeah. Even
the subtlety later where they start to they run into Maisie and they're playing mom and dad. Like there's the family unit there.
Yeah.
It's not obvious that it's mom, dad, and child. It's just adults looking out for a scared kid.
Yeah.
But then it very quickly becomes this, hey, it's mom, dad, and kid, just at least in the symbolism of it, which is interesting. I was happy that they didn't knock me over the head with it because it just continues to. It would have been forceful, I think, at this point. So they are captured and thrown into a cell, essentially. At this point, basically left to die because Eli comes down and says, "Well, everybody thinks they died on the island, so." Yep. And it's not said, leave them in here till they die, but it's kind of assumed that they're not really worried about them right now. If they get sick or they stay in there a couple days or whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of morbid.
A little bit.
But
rather than just like shooting them and putting them out of their misery or something, just to leave them down there is a little... But like you said, he has more pressing things to deal with.
Yes, because the auction...
Absolutely.
Is coming up. So we have the auction setting itself up. At the same time, we have Maisie, who's been locked in her room, who Jimmy's opened the lock and escapes. She
tries to, but then sees the guards outside the door.
So she goes out her window and she basically just like rappels off the side through all of these ledges and gets to her grandpa's room. Unfortunately, right before this, another really kind of heart-wrenching scene. Ben Lockwood has confronted Eli about this because Maisie did go to her grandpa saying like, hey, they're going to do this. And in a kind of a mean way, he brushes it off, but he definitely is going to look into it.
Yeah.
But in this scene, he's basically firing Eli, saying, like, how dare you in my own house, and, like, playing the patriarch and doing this. But at the same time, he's this old man who is on life support and really can't do anything about it other than he's got control still. And a very dark situation plays out where Eli picks up the phone like he's going to call, and then he puts the phone down where the phone was resting on a pillow, and he picks up the pillow and sets the phone down. And you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. He's gonna, Yeah, definitely a dark moment. Even more so. I mean, you knew, I think, going into it that Eli's willing to do what he has to get things done, but this is the first moment that you see him really be willing to take things into his own hands and actually kill someone to get his goal.
Yeah, and you see, like, throughout the movie, there's a couple times where he talks about it, and he's not necessarily doing it for evil means. He's not trying to sell these dinosaurs off to bad people. Mm-hmm. He's just realizing the next step. The next step in this is creating these animals to be basically domesticated. It's like, this is what we do, is we find the technology, we use the technology, we grow. He's like, this is just the next step. But he does involve some very shady people, including Russian mobsters. There's like every stereotypical mobster. There's Chinese, there's Russian, there's Slovakian, or I don't know. I don't think there were any stereotypical American mobsters, which, I don't know. Maybe there were.
Definitely not a good group of people to be around.
Exactly. And so as this is all happening, we said Maisie is going outside to try to get to her grandpa, but her grandpa's just been smothered. And so she gets into the room and she's like, Grandpa, wake up, like some bad things are happening. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like Simba in Lion King. She's like shoving him, like, wake up.
Yeah.
And he's dead. She realizes it fairly quickly and then hears that people are coming in. She grabs the photo album, runs to the dumbwaiter, and just waits there. As she's waiting there, she pulls out the picture, and it's a picture of the nanny and her mother. But the mother looks exactly like her. Like, identically to her. So she looks at it, and she looks a little confused, but not, like, terrified or anything. She's just, there's something that's, like, concerning to her.
Yeah. Well, and it's been addressed before. Earlier in the movie, the grandfather says that she's, like, the mirror image of her mother. So it's not completely kind of out of nowhere that it's an identical. But the amount of resemblance, I think, is a little more than you would even expect from that situation.
Yeah, it's not like she resembles her mother. It's almost like she is her mother. Yeah. It's very weird. So she is in there and she's trying to compose herself. And she starts to realize, hey, I can't be in this room. She starts to, well, it's the sniffle. She's starting to cry. That's what Eli hears. And at that point, she starts doing the pulley system to get out of there. Eli opens it up, and realizes that it's not that he thinks it's moving, but something's up.
Yeah.
So he goes to find her, sorry, I take that back. He doesn't go to find her. He doesn't do that at all. He goes to the auction, because the auction's starting. And so we kind of have a lot of moving pieces right now. The auction is starting, and the auctioneer is kind of explaining everything. We see basically how this night is going to run. People are going to pay for the dinosaurs are going to be shipped out, etc. Well, as this is going on, you have Claire and Owen who are trying to get out. They hear something next to him, and he jumps up, looks over into the cell next to them, and I don't know the name of the dinosaur, but it is the one that we saw in the Lost World with like the skull headbutting dinosaurs.
I'm trying to see if I can find. I can't find what it's called.
It is. Let's see, head butting dinosaur.
Stigmalock. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Yeah,
it's
essentially the one that looks like it has like a helmet on it.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's at one point. I'm trying to look at it. You've seen it in the in Lost World. It's got like this skull helmet on it. Yeah. And it's this little baby essentially. It's a smaller version of this, and so he basically he tricks this dinosaur into breaking through a concrete wall over and over, slamming its head up against a concrete wall, probably like 30 times. I mean, it takes a while. It breaks through, and then he does it one more time, and it breaks, and it runs and charges toward him, but breaks the lock. Then it gets free, and they're free. All of a sudden, though, they turn the corner, and they see Maisie, and they're like, "Oh no, like, come here, like you shouldn't be there." And they're being the parental figures of this little girl, and I understand exactly why she was hesitant. But all it took to get her out of there was, "Do you like dinosaurs? We do too.
Yeah.
Can we talk to you about dinosaurs?" And then she gets out. Like,
yeah. Well, I think it calls back to she recognizes Owen when she's in the room earlier. She watches the videos of him training before she almost gets essentially clawed by the Indoraptors. She sees the videos of Owen training the raptors.
Right. I forgot about that.
And she saw Claire earlier when she came to the mansion initially. So she recognizes them as not necessarily bad people. Obviously, they're still concerned, but I think that kind of aids in her coming out and going with them. But yeah, it's still a little sudden to be that scared and then all of a sudden being willing to go with them.
She does come out, though, and she kind of takes them up, and they are walking alongside of the auction at one point. We get to what they call halfway through the night, and they're like, "We have a surprise, we have a treat for you." They are going to show off the Indoraptor, which essentially is just to give them like a, "Hey, look at what we're doing. In a few years or shortly, we'll have something even better for you." They do this kind of, it's being shown off, and they do this little training demonstration where they have a laser sight on a gun that they are pointing at one of the random people there that night. And the Indoraptor starts like looking at this, and it's like it knows exactly what this is. Then they press a button on the side, and it's like this sound wave goes out, and then it wants nothing but to rip apart this guy who's being targeted.
Right.
So they're showing this off as basically a weapon of war, a soldier, weapon. And immediately people start betting. They're bidding for this. $20 million, $25 million. It's just going up. And they're like, "It's not for sale. This is a prototype." But all of a sudden, Eli says, "Sell it." And this is where, like you said earlier with Dr. Wu, he steps in. He protests. It's not ready. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good scene to show Dr. Wu hasn't completely gone all the way. I mean, it's definitely shows kind of the divergence between the characters of Eli and the auctioneer and kind of they're there for the money. They're willing to do whatever they need to, so they're willing to sell this prototype that's definitely not ready and is probably going to end up mauling someone.
Yes.
But Dr. Wu tries to step in and stop them, but ultimately doesn't really have any control over the situation. So
there's a line where he's like, we've got the DNA. We'll make others. And he goes, so will they. He's like, he realizes that in the wrong hands, all of this technology and all of these species can go do some damage, which is kind of the whole problem with him. Is he's doing some things with it, but even him creating this dinosaur allows that to go to somebody else.
Yep.
So I think there's some indirect villainy there because he's doing it for good reasons or potentially positive reasons, but you don't know where this is going to end up.
Yeah.
So during this bidding of this, we see the headbutting dinosaur. He finds its way into the elevator and then turns around and is like, oh, look where I am. And just starts headbutting, like stampeding through all of these people, knocking them all over the place, and chaos ensues, essentially. At this point, we start to see that, there's all this chaos going on. I can't remember exactly where this plays in. It's either has happened around this time or shortly before this. We see Franklin. He's in the lab, and Wu is trying to get everything together, and he's like, okay, this is going to shit. I need blood out of Blue. Because I think he thinks at this point, Blue's not going to be taken with us. We have no way of getting her out.
Right.
But we can try something. Right. So he tells Franklin, go get me all these different pieces of equipment. Franklin has no idea what any of this is.
Right.
Wu goes over to Blue, and Zia's basically saying, I'm done helping you. You can do this if you want. And this is where you see Franklin stepping up and kind of being the hero. But Zia pulls Franklin toward her, opens up the cage, and lets Blue go to town on these guards. Wu escapes. Of course. But yeah, so Blue is now is free in this manner, which is important for later. How did you make out this whole... What did you see in the interaction between Franklin and Zia? Because they were always together. Wasn't necessarily romantic, and I didn't see it that way. But almost at times it was like there was some sort of a connection between them. Yeah. But how did you view it?
I kind of feel it more like a sibling kind of relationship. Like she sees him as like the slightly annoying younger brother that she loves to pick on, but still cares about and wants to protect. I definitely don't see it as a romantic kind of a situation.
Yeah, I didn't get romance.
Yeah, and I think she just wanted to make sure that he was safe when it came time to essentially release Blue and let her do what she needed to do.
Yeah, and it was... the only reason I ask is because you saw those two together a lot. At the beginning, they were ribbing each other a little bit. At the end, same thing. So...
I definitely think it mirrors again, calling back to the first film, it mirrors the Lexi and the younger brother. I can't remember.
But gender swapped, though, because he's playing the kind of scared one. And actually, so a student of mine actually did a report on... He did the book, but he talked about how essentially because Lexi plays the tomboy, and it's only until she kind of stops being the tomboy and starts being like the matriarch of that, where things start getting better for them. So it was like almost this idea of like girls need to be girls and boys need to be boys. And you almost see that reversing of that here. Yeah. Because Franklin's very much the feminine character and Zia's the masculine character, kind of stepping up and doing the things she needs to do. And, standing up to authority, whereas Franklin is very submissive throughout.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a weird, shift, but I think hey, it's the 21st century. It's 2018. These characters can be whatever they want. Right. But you see that's a little different.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to look at.
Even in the original movie, though, when I know I'm familiar with the book and the movie of the original one, that they swapped a lot of the characteristics of, I can't remember the little brother's name, Lexi and I want to say Tommy, but that now sounds wrong. But they swapped a lot of the characteristics. In the book, the younger brother is the one who has the kind of the computer skills, and they gave those to Lexi for the movie. So, I mean, by the end of the movie, she's the one who kind of reboots the system and gets all of the security measures in place again. So, even in the original one, the older sister is kind of the strong one at that later point in the movie, which I think definitely mirrors kind of Zia being the stronger of the two, even though the technical elements of it and kind of the computer skills still falls to Franklin, to the younger brother type. Timmy, that's what it was.
You're close.
Yeah, I was close. I was almost there. But I definitely saw a lot of that Lexi-Timmy relationship in Zia and Franklin.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't look at them in that way. I wasn't really sure how to look at them, honestly, but I like the fact that there's that framing. Because, again, this movie does a lot of callbacks. Even more, honestly, I feel like this one did more homage to the original franchise than the first Jurassic World did.
Yeah, definitely.
The first Jurassic World is trying to be its own thing and saying, like, yes, we are in the same world. We don't need to do pay homage, or do these little Easter eggs or mirroring aspects, because we are literally here. And you have what we wanted eventually to get to in Jurassic Park. We have the opening. We have all these people here. This is what Jurassic Park was supposed to be. We don't need to add anything else to it. This one, we're not even on Jurassic Park. We're within the realm anymore. We're no longer on the island. The island essentially has been wiped out. So we have to remind people still that this is within this realm of Jurassic Park franchise, at least. So everybody has essentially, gone out. Oh, and that's actually important to remember, to note at least, during this blue attack, essentially on the guards, a lot of damage has been done. Gunshots have gone off, and more specifically, one of these tanks, which has, I can't remember, it's some sort of a gas. I don't know why they had this tank of gas in the lab, but it's very poisonous, very dangerous, and it's leaking out.
Right.
And that'll come into play here shortly. As all these people are running out, Wheatley is standing, the original mercenary, he is standing out kind of in one of the loading areas, and he's yelling for Eli, saying he wants his bonus. He was getting he would receive a bonus if they got Blue alive. It's like, I want my bonus. So he's running, he walks in, and basically the auction room is completely empty. The only thing left is this cage holding the Indoraptor. And this is when every stereotypical aspect of what is going to happen to a guy happens in this situation. He's like, "Oh, where did you come from?" All right, and he walks up to it and tranks it, and it falls down. He opens the cage, and as soon as he does that, you know exactly that he's dead.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Like, I was sitting next to a couple people, and you heard it, like, behind me, next to me. Oh, no, why are you doing that? Like, come on.
Oh, yeah.
Guy opens the cage, walks into it, and the Indoraptor plays him.
Yeah. It's definitely another example of the intelligence level of this creature. Just the moment where its tail's wagging in the back, and then it puts it down right as he turns around, and then you see his eye open, and you know this guy's just completely screwed at this point.
And finally we get a little bit of realism, too. It seems throughout the entire movie up to this point, they've been toying with the aspect of gore. You see a little bit of blood spatter, but it doesn't seem to be anything big. We finally, at this point, Wheatley goes to grab the tooth, because it's this hubris idea.
Yeah.
He's definitely a victim of hubris in this movie, where he goes and he gets out his wrench, or his pliers, to pull out the tooth, and he pulls a little bit and it won't come out, and he goes to really get some momentum behind it, and the Indoraptor drops the charade, bites his arm, lifts him up with no effort at all, and then bites down and his arm's off. And then at this point, the guy's in shock, and he's just like, no, I'm sorry, or like he's just pleading for his life from this animal, and then it kills him. At this point, the auctioneer, which I don't know why it would have just stayed there, when at this point, before this, the dinosaur had been caged up. It's like, leave, you can leave.
Yeah.
He's been sitting there this whole time, and then now when he sees this dinosaur, the door's not been closed behind him, so now the dinosaur can get out free, and it's just attacked somebody. Then he decides to go and try to run.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the guy in the first movie who picks that time to run, freak out, and go to the bathroom. But as Goldblum says, sometimes when you gotta go, you gotta go. He gets into the elevator, and he gets into it, and there are like 3 other people there. And this just shows you this kind of character. He grabs the girl, throws her, she screams, and then that alerts the Indoraptor, and it's like, okay, now it goes to attack them. But he closes the door closes at the last second, which, this is hilarious. Indoraptor turns around, tail smacks the, kind of like the...
like the control panel kind of thing,
Doors open.
And of course everyone at that point is like, yeah, we're in the elevator, we're safe, and his back's turned, and he's like, we got away from him, it's great, and then doors open, and it's over.
And they're all dead. So, the villains are getting theirs, essentially. This is where we start to see, a shift, because the trio of Claire, Owen, and Maisie are trying essentially to escape, the manor, as well as stop the Indoraptor from being sold off. They don't want this to getting out. So, we see Eli, who runs into them, and this is where we have a huge plot twist. Turns out that Maisie is a clone of her mother. Her mother died at a young age, and Hammond and Lockwood had this huge falling out because Lockwood wanted to use the technology to clone his daughter, and Hammond did not want him to. A huge plot twist, and one that is going to, I think, in some way have some shaping of the third movie, in at least some fashion, but one that came out of nowhere, saying that the characters of Maisie and Ben Lockwood didn't exist until this movie. What do you think of this whole twist of the human cloning aspect of the using the DNA to recreate, and how it's involved in this movie?
I mean, I again think it kind of just came out of left field. Like, it was added because it felt like there was a need for a plot twist in a movie that kind of already has a lot of them. I thought it was interesting. There was part of me as they kept playing around with some of the, like, not showing the photos and that kind of stuff, that, like, maybe she was a former character's daughter or
I thought it was going to be, what's her name from the first movie? Dr. Grant's assistant.
Ellie? Yeah.
I thought it was going to be her.
I was thinking
reason.
Ellie. I was thinking maybe it's Lexi's daughter, like, based on time frame. But I mean, it's an interesting approach to it. Something kind of different for the twist. I also thought maybe there was going to be something even weirder, that she had, like, some kind of dinosaur DNA as part of her or something. I was like, that may be a little bit too far. I definitely think it's an interesting approach to it. Because they've shown that they can flawlessly do this over and over again. And especially with human DNA, they don't need to fill in the gaps with anything. So it was an interesting approach. And I think it's definitely going to have some implications in the future, in the next one.
Well, it's an aspect of the film that we've never talked about. Ever. It hasn't been brought up ever. And you'd think 5 movies in and finally we get it. But it's this concept of we're able to recreate something that used to exist based on small aspects of DNA. I don't know how it took us this long. So I love the fact that they introduced it. I'm intrigued by what they're going to do with it. I just wish there would have been better lead up into this family. That was my biggest qualm, I guess, with the whole aspect of it. And that that Claire and Owen didn't seem to care. They weren't like, really? Like, oh my god, she's a clone? Like, even, like, of course they're not going to react in a real negative way. But it was like this huge bomb drop. The kid was even kind of just like, oh, okay. And then, well, I mean, and some of it is timing, because at this point, then we have, is it the Indoraptor actually breaks through. And then we have this, we can't react because there's not time to react. But we see Maisie running, and she's trying to get up to her room, which I don't understand why she wants to go to her room, because that's at the top of the building where there's no escape, as opposed to going outside where there's multiple aspects. But that's kind of a convention of these types of movies. She goes up, and here's the one part of the callbacks that I didn't like. She gets into the dumbwaiter, and she's trying to pull down the door to it, and she can't. And you have the Indoraptor running at her, and this was the like obvious callback to the first movie with the oven.
Yep.
And I was like, come on. Like, you can recycle as much as you want. This is literally, the only difference is it was an oven and it was a dumbwaiter.
Yeah.
And I was like...
The frantic pulling down of the door and getting it closed right at the exact right moment.
Which I love the fact with the first movie that it was the reflection. Like, that's more of a twist than being able to pull it down at the last second.
Right.
But still, it was just like, come on. I mean, that was the only one that I felt was a little forced.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see that.
It was clever.
It's a fun callback, but definitely a little bit too obvious, I think.
Especially later in the movie when we've gotten a lot of callbacks and a lot of mirrors to other things, and you're just like... Then at that point, I was like, you guys were lazy. You just looked and you were started to recycle. So that one, I don't know. I think it might have been... If that would have happened earlier in the movie, I wouldn't have had an issue with it, but the timing of it might have thrown me off a bit. But she does... She gets to her room and hides under the covers.
Yeah. A little cheesy, but it's also what... I mean, she's supposed to be what? 7, 8?
I was going to say 8 or 9, yeah.
Like, she's relatively young, so that's what... When a monster's chasing you, that's what you're told to do, is hide under your covers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a cute little way to show you again that she's just a kid still, because she's definitely... I mean, she's gone above and beyond to figure out this whole plot and to try and do what she can to help. It's a good way to kind of reinforce that the character's still just a kid, I think. But yeah, a little cheesy to hide under the covers from the monster. But
we skipped one part that kind of leads us into this that I was thinking, oh hey, when did that happen? Well, it happened right before this. So actually, when they escape through, they escape from Eli. They go into the viewing. What are they called? Like in a museum, all of the exhibits. Yeah. Thank you. Jeez. Oh man. Okay. So the exhibits, where they have like the stuffed, dinosaur models and things like that. And all the lights are off because the system we've lost all electricity. Well, you have, Zia and Franklin who are in the control room trying to get rid of this toxic gas because they're looking like, oh my gosh, we need to get rid of this or all the dinosaurs are going to die. So they reboot the system. Well, rebooting the system turns all the lights on. The two-way glass, essentially, has prevented the Indoraptor from seeing Claire, Owen, and Maisie. And at the last second, they're getting ready to go through this door, and the lights turn on, and you see Maisie standing there. And there's this really cool reflective scene where Maisie's screaming. She kind of can see through it, and you can see that basically the Indoraptor is face-to-face with her.
Right.
But you see her reflection and it behind it, which is this cool aspect of, like, they're both created.
Yeah.
And then it breaks through, and then you have this real, like, nasty moment where the Indoraptor's claw is digging into Claire's leg.
Yeah,
You're like
stabs her leg. Yeah.
Oh. Again, I like that, though, because it makes it real.
Yeah.
You need this movie to feel like bad things can happen, and, like... You're going to run around with a bunch of dinosaurs. You're not going to walk out without a scratch. So,
right.
But that's when Maisie breaks away and we have her go up to her room.
Right.
So she gets there and she hides under the covers, which, again, you're right. It's cheesy and dumb, but that's what, I mean, if I was 9 running away from a dinosaur, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. You get under your covers. The Indoraptor, though, has broken out through the house. It's climbed up on the roof, and essentially then... It's very smart. It's got that same callback to the first one where the raptors start figuring out how to open doors. And it comes in, and then right at the last second, as it's reaching for Maisie, Owen breaks into the room, starts shooting it, and it falls down and immediately gets back up. So he has no bullets left. He has no tranks left. Done. So this is where Blue comes in. You're like, yes, Blue. I'd forgotten you were here. Blue comes in, and this huge fight starts happening. This is definitely the climax. We get to a point where we are back on top of the roof, and Claire's up there somehow. That was
a little
kind of weird. So we call back to the same route that Maisie takes when she tries to go. She goes outside the house to get to her grandpa. They do the same thing, only this time Owen's with her, and they get above the kind of the exhibit room.
Yeah.
And there's this glass dome, and Claire starts banging on the ladder that's there to try to get the attention of the Indoraptor from Owen and Maisie back onto her. She got up there even though probably muscles have been torn in her leg.
Right.
Because this raptor's claw went in deep.
It's definitely another one of those convenient plot points where we need Claire to be here at this point, so she miraculously was able to get there.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's kind of But Blue comes into the play here. Blue's protecting them. They do the whole laser sight. She has the gun, too.
Yeah.
I don't know how she... A lot of convenient writing goes into the end of this. She has the gun. She puts the laser onto Owen. There's this unspoken plan moment that they know exactly what they're going to do. She does the sound wave. It runs at her. It runs at him. He slides off, and it starts to fall through the glass. But it catches itself, comes back up. Blue then jumps on it, and you have this like slow motion fall down into the through the glass into that room, where the Indoraptor lands on the Triceratops skull, impaled on the two horns.
Yeah.
And Blue does this roar of dominance.
Yeah.
What did you think of this as being the end of, essentially, the action climax and resolution?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. The chasing back and forth was kind of interesting. I liked, again, you see the intelligence of the Indoraptor a couple different times throughout this, especially when it starts to step on the kind of the glass ceiling over top of the exhibit room, and it realizes the glass can't bear the weight, and you get some of the callbacks to the second movie with kind of the weight bearing on the glass, and so it picks itself back up and is on the bracing, and then you see it start to fall, and when it catches itself, you think, oh no, it's still going to fall, and then you have that kind of oh shit moment of it pulling itself back up.
Exactly.
And that plan failing, and then of course it's nice to see Blue come to the rescue, kind of come full circle and save Owen essentially. I had that kind of split second of, oh crap, Blue's going to get impaled on this Triceratops horn too, and I was like, no!
I did too.
So it was kind of cool to see her kind of come out on top and be standing on top of the Indoraptor's kind of corpse at that point. A little dark, but to see her kind of come out on top and position herself as the kind of the prime kind of creature at that moment was pretty cool. I thought, yeah, there's definitely some moments of plot convenience, but all in all, it was kind of an exciting moment of kind of the battle kind of at the end there. A good build up.
Well, and it's not over because they find themselves back in the you've got is it Franklin and Zia are like, you got to come down here. All of the animals, all the dinosaurs are trapped down here, and the ventilation is broken. There's no way of fixing it. So there's this toxic gas that is spilling into this lab area, and all the dinosaurs are essentially choking to death. They release all of them. Claire goes and releases all of them from their cages, and then goes to let them out, and essentially out into the world. These doors lead into the outdoor area of the manor, and Owen has this a second time with this dilemma of the morality of saying, you know what happens if you press that button. It's not just letting them survive. You are letting them survive, but you're letting them survive out in our world. It's not just out in this island. There's implications and consequences to what you're going to do. Yeah,
it's essentially like the next step of that moral dilemma of do we let the dinosaurs live or die kind of situation. Only the stakes are higher.
Exactly. It's now it is not only do we let them live or die, but what's the consequence of them living or dying? And so she shuts it and she walks away and she starts watching them die, and they're choking and they're trying to get out and they can't. And all of a sudden the lights come on and the doors open and you see Maisie let them out. And she's like, I had to. They're still alive. They're still just like me. They're still they're still living. And so they're out, and they're not mad at her because they understand this moral aspect of it. I would have been a little pissed off. Like, yes, I understand you just found out you're a clone of your mother. You're not really you. You are your mother. there's no personal uniqueness to you.
Yeah.
But do you realize what you've done?
Yeah. It's definitely, again, that moral gray area, because you understand that she's seeing it as, well, if they shouldn't be alive, then neither should I, kind of a situation. But again, she's not a 15-foot tall dinosaur that's going to potentially eat someone. So there's definitely some implications there that it'll be interesting to see how the characters deal with those in the next film.
So yeah, and she doesn't want to let him go. Maisie does, and then we see Mills again, and Mills is trying to escape with the Indominus Rex rib, his prized rib, and he starts to see the animals, the dinosaurs coming out of this path that have been let go, and he gets underneath the car instead of like behind it or anything. Almost gets crushed, gets out, and then you have the two dinosaurs that we saw earlier. The gyrosphere,
right?
They show up again. That the one T-Rex looking dinosaur and the T-Rex kind of shows its dominance again by telling the other one to go away,
right?
And then it eats Eli.
Yeah.
And again, very similar of a callback to the guy in the bathroom, the way in which he's like cowering and then just gets eaten.
I also thought it was, again, another callback. They had lots and lots of them in this movie. Eli underneath the car is definitely a callback to Timmy in the first movie being trapped in the truck and being pushed down into the mud. Lots of callbacks in this movie.
A lot of them.
So,
then so there's a couple more there. The Indominus rib gets crushed by the T-Rex as it is walking out, and that kind of concludes that night. The next thing we see is we hear there's a new U.S. Senate hearing, essentially, of the consequences. It's a rush to the end, essentially. There's no more plot. You see Claire and Owen and Maisie driving on this country road, essentially, up this mountain. And the U.S. Senate hearing, Goldblum is voicing over this concept of now we have to learn to coexist. Now they are here, and we have the they said it moment of welcome to Jurassic World.
Yeah.
This is the world we're living in now.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely, again, another good callback to in the first movie. As they're driving into the park, he says the welcome to Jurassic Park line, and he closes out this one with welcome to Jurassic World. And it's an interesting implication because it takes it from Jurassic World, where it's Jurassic World the theme park, to Jurassic World of the world.
The reality
is now
of it,
all of it together. So definitely an interesting callback, and of course you can't beat Jeff Goldblum's delivery of that line.
Oh, that final monologue was amazing.
Yeah.
So cool. Combining that with the visuals that we see that Mosasaurus that we completely forgot about because it happened in the cold opening. Basically in the wave of this surfer, and you have all these people, and it's really creepy, like something out of a horror movie.
It's very Jaws.
Yeah.
As you're watching it, it's these unsuspecting people in the water with this giant monster behind them.
Yep.
Very, very unsettling.
Another callback as the T-Rex breaks through the fence, like it did in the first movie. This time, though, a fence that leads into a highway. You hear all these cars start to honk their horns and everything like that. And then we see Blue that is kind of... Blue is out in the wild. Blue actually chose the wild over Owen that night. That's something we didn't talk about. But runs away. Basically, Blue looks over to one side, sees the cage, knows that's the life it's going to live if it goes with Owen. Yes, it trusts Owen, but it's either caged with Owen as a protector or out in the wild, and it chooses freedom.
Yeah.
Kind of a real moment. What's gonna have some implications as we see Blue is out running around the desert, essentially. Very cool setup for the final film. Blue does its bark, the Velociraptor bark, as it's overlooking this desert city. And then we go to the credits. Did you say for the post-credits?
I did.
So we see these pterodactyls that are landing on the Eiffel Tower of Las Vegas, over the Vegas Strip, and that's it. It's not like a huge, like, oh my gosh, but continuing this idea of there are implications and consequences that will be addressed in the third movie.
Yeah, it's gone from this coastal. It's showing the spread and where they're traveling So it's no longer just isolated to this kind of coastal area. They're moving inland. Mm-hmm. So it's going to have a lot of implications, I think, for how the next movie is going to go.
And I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a cool third movie. It's going to be different, like you said earlier today. The franchise is going to end, at least, I mean, I hope it ends with a third. If they keep going, it's going to feel drawn out.
Yeah.
But I think it'll end in a very distinct, unique way. Hopefully very different from Jurassic Park 3.
Hopefully.
All right, so your final thoughts, and then ranking 1 to 5. Let's go with 1 to 5 Brachiosaurus, just because. Gotta give it one more little bit of attention before we say goodbye. So your final thoughts, what you thought about it, rank it 1 to 5 Brachiosaurus.
Final thoughts, I think it's a solid entry. Definitely not as strong as some of the past ones. Especially the first kind of 2 original movies were really, really strong. I think it's a solid entry. It kind of marks a turning point in how Jurassic Park and Jurassic World really kind of is seen. It's taking it to more of a wider implication. In the past, it's always been isolated to this one area, but it's setting the stage for something a lot bigger, which I think is a really cool play. Like I said, definitely not as strong as the previous ones. As a standalone movie, I thought it was really good. It had its moments. Like you said earlier, a lot of callbacks, not necessarily completely original in terms of the way that it approached it, but for a lot of the callbacks, I like the way that it approached it. I'd give it a 3 out of 5. 3 Brachiosaurus out of 5.
You left point. 2 of them on the dock.
I did. Too much.
I'm with you there. I think that for me, in some areas, I thought that the callbacks and the mirroring was fun. It was kind of an homage to the fans that would catch them, but they weren't subtle enough for just the fans. Like, if you've seen the first movie once, you're like, oh, hey, that happened in the first movie. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, that happened in the first. It just kind of got to a point where it became a little bit less of a fun Easter egg aspect of the movie, and at times it felt like it was fitting a mold, a template of a sequel to an action movie, and a little, like we said, lazy, convenient writing at times. Again, if you want to see it, it's well worth it. I thought it was a good movie. It was fun, different in areas. It ended in a very different way that we really haven't seen. I mean, in the first movie, in Lost World, everything kind of seems to wrap itself up. So that's why we're like, oh, we don't even need a third movie because the T-Rex has been captured. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. But then we jump back to Isla Nublar. So there is no Isla Nublar anymore. It is gone. I mean, the island's there, but it's nothing but ash. So we know where we're going to be in this next movie. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. I'm going to give it 3 as well. 3 Brachiosaurus, and I'm going to leave 2 on the dock as well. Sorry, guys. But I think it was a good movie. I give it a 3 out of 5 instead of anything higher, just because I think at times it got really lazy.
Yeah, I would agree.
Fun, but as far as really stretching themselves with creativity, I think that it kind of is a little boring at times as far as unique ideas. But that wraps it up for us. Next week, those of you who have stuck around, so our callback to earlier in the episode, we found out what we were drinking, because this week we will be recording a couple of former guest hosts. Nick from what did he do? He did Love, Simon and Pitch Perfect 3 is going to be joining us, as well as Kelly from The Greatest Showman review. We're going to be watching Spice World Under the Influence. We're going to be having the very first ever drunk drive-in, and our review will be coming after we have had quite a few drinks and watched Spice World. It's going to be a fun episode. I don't know. It's going to be a train wreck, or it's going to be funny, or it's going to be a funny train wreck.
It's going to be a little bit of both, I think. That's going to be pretty good.
So you guys will enjoy that. I know we're going to have a good time recording that this week. But until then, Aaron, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah,
we're not going to wait. We're not going to wait 23 episodes to get you on again. But thanks for coming on. It was a lot of fun. And until next time, guys, drive home safe.